Hello and welcome to Film Companion South. In this episode, we're going to be talking about this small little Swedish movie called, we're going to be talking about Master, directed by Lokesh Kanagaraj and starring Vijay. Now, I love Lokesh Kanagaraj's approach to cinema. He has this Tarantino-esque approach where he takes a little bit from this film and a little bit from that film and makes it completely his own. In Godard's words, it's not where you take it from, it's where you take it to. So in Managaram, Lokesh took the hyperlink format and took it to a point where the film had an almost moral center. He made a set of anonymous characters reflect the anonymous nature of a big city. In Kaidi, he took a die-hard kind of genre thriller from Hollywood and made it a mass masala movie for a superhero here in Tamil Nadu in the Tamil mass culture. And now, in a way, he has made his most challenging work yet. And I'll tell you why. Because, in a way, when Managaram was made, it was very ambitious and all that kind of stuff. But then Lokesh was unknown, the cast was relatively unknown or small. And it's kind of easier to get away with a lot of experiments if you want. But in a master with a megastar like Vijay, you have to kind of really make sure that what you want to do is in sync with what the star's fans, what the market wants of the star. And I think Lokesh has kind of succeeded to a large extent in a way that we want a Lokesh Kanagaraj film. We also want a Vijay film. And I think this film, it has a lot of flaws, but I think flaws and all, I think this film manages to find a balance. I can't say I loved Master wholeheartedly, but there are so many interesting things in this film that you just have to keep thinking about it. I keep going back to it. In fact, this is the kind of film that makes you want to write a thesis rather than a review. After a really long time, after Mohan Raja's Vele Karan, in fact, I got the sense of watching a really classily made mass movie. In the sense that there is a lot of usually when they make mass movies, they mainly think B center, C center, B center, C center, and they kind of try to do a lot of stuff in a lot of stuff that they imagine the audiences want. But here the screenplay takes precedence in the sense that the characters and everything else, that becomes the important thing. And there are arcs definitely for both the villain and the hero, though a lot of the secondary characters are, I don't know what happened, whether they were written badly or they were there was a lot written and left on the editing, console. I don't know what happened, but because there are people like Shanthanu, Bhagyaraj and Andrea Jeremiah who could not have been in the film and we would not have missed them at all. Now coming back to the characters that work, there's Vijay, who's after a long time, he's in good form because he's not playing a prefab star, he's playing a character. So this character is somebody who's drunk from 6 p.m. onwards. After a long time, I got the sense of seeing Vijay, a Vijay who's really vulnerable. He has faults. He's a bit of a dick, frankly, and that dickishness is what makes him really interesting because you don't find a big star being so self-centered. He's like, okay, guys, do whatever you want. That kind of attitude is amazing to find in a big star. Of course, that the transformation will happen soon and there will be a big event, a big dramatic event that will kind of change this whole thing and he will be transformed into a non-dick rather. But the thing is that while this is happening, while the selfish part, the self-centered part of Vijay is happening, he literally is sleeping through classes, he's a professor. I found it amazing that a star had allowed himself to be portrayed this way, because usually our stars are always the do-gooders, they want to change society right from scene one, and that's not happening here at all. Some really nice screenwriting is happening here because the Vijay character's past, that's kind of dismissed in one or two lines. He makes fun of it by referencing a lot of popular films, but his real past is not really explained beyond a very brief thing, and they don't milk it for sentiment. And the way this character is woken up, that is completely transformed through a tragedy, and the way a fight sequence subsequently begins with a letter being torn, these are superb examples of mass film writing that is also classy. The hero intro scene, that's very classy as well, and if one thing that you really enjoy in a Lokesh Kanagaraj movie, it's the fun that he has in staging and shooting his scenes. That fun is infectious. There's an early action scene in a train where a man is given a punch and he goes and crashes against point A and point B and point C and point D, and the camera, instead of staying wide and capturing that movement throughout, it kind of follows him and you see him actually hit point A, point B, point C, point D. You actually feel every hit because you are right next to this person. Another lovely bit of camera work is towards the end when JD, the Vijay character, and Bhavani, the Vijay Sethupathi character, the villain, they kind of get together, and there's, 360-degree shots are not very new in our cinema. We've seen them all the time. But here, the camera sticks so close that it goes in so much that we actually feel we are inches away from these characters, and that again feels very refreshing and very new. The color palette is classy. It's not the typical explosion of every rainbow color that you see in a Vijay movie. There's a brownishness that reflects the somber, sober nature of the story. But the classiest feature is the pre-credit setup, which Lokesh said in a Film Companion interview that that's his signature. So this is the setup that establishes the villain, the Bhavani character played by Vijay Sethupathi. It's amazing because we see this terrified boy slowly transformed into a terrifying killer. And if Satya Sooryan's cinematography, the colors are dark, it's not just a gimmick, it's not just a style, it reflects the darkness and grimness in these characters and in the surroundings. This is a great character in terms of conception because he has an almost mythological element. He has fists of steel which is developed in his adversity. But then why does the rest of the film feel so undercooked? You have a hero who's very interestingly created. You have a villain who has these wonderful traits. Why does the rest of the film feel so kind of undercooked? The heroine played by Malavika Mohanan, she's really uncomfortable in whatever she does. She has a crucial role of awakening the Vijay character, but those scenes play out like without an arc. She doesn't seem to have an arc at all. She kind of comes and goes as she pleases. And even Bhavani, the Vijay Sethupathi character, after a point doesn't go anywhere. He gets this great Hitchcockian touch where we, the audiences, know who he is, who the villain is, but Vijay, the hero, doesn't know who he is. So that's like an amazing thing, right? But this guy should have been much more amazing, and not much is made of the fact that he has all these facets to him. And Vijay Sethupathi is not able to find a pitch of the character. I mean, as a physical presence, he's fine, and that would have been okay in a typical Vijay movie. But here, you needed more than just that. Like always in Lokesh Kanagaraj's movies, there's lots of nods to Kamal's films. Here, the premise itself is a reworking of Nammavar, and one of my favorite touches is that if you remember Mahanadi, there's a character called Tulukanam, and that same actor plays a character called Tulukanam here. But these are trivia things for trivia buffs, and I am a trivia buff, okay, and I love this stuff, but they can only add to a screenplay. They cannot become the screenplay. Now, that's the tricky part about doing these postmodern things on screen. On the one hand, we accept and are explicitly made aware that nothing is really original, so people are just going to be reworking stuff and winking at stuff. But the movie has to power through these bits and become something powerful on its own. There's a great touch where Bhavani is shown wearing chains that denote all religions, but it would have been a greater touch had this actually resulted in a payoff. And I think that's the problem with Master, because conceptually there are so many great ideas, but these conceptual ideas don't translate into something convincing on screen, though there are very good bits. For example, conceptually speaking, it's a great idea to establish the fact that this particular school needs a professor. And you think that the next scene Vijay is going to land up there, but it actually takes a good 45 minutes for him to get there. And in that 45 minutes, you see him in another school, and that's where Vijay's character is established as this drunk guy, as a guy with all these issues. And that's amazing, right, in concept. But somehow you wish that the people around Vijay in this big college segment had actually had something to do in the rest of the film, because otherwise we are spending a lot of time with these people and they're really not giving us a lot in return. Again, conceptually, it's a great idea to keep JD and Bhavani so far apart for most of the film, and the scene that they meet is a cracker of a mass scene where they accidentally meet. But again, this means that we should have gotten fireworks when they finally do meet, and that doesn't quite happen. But flaws and all, I think Master is an important film because what Lokesh Kanagaraj has done, he's made a Vijay film through the prism of a Vijay film, giving us what we want from a Vijay film, but filtered through other things. For example, we always know that Vijay films have kid characters, right? But here the kid character is not just a cutie pie kid character. He actually saves the heroine when Vijay is watching and unable to do anything. And this is a terrific scene where you think that something has been dropped in for the sake of a Vijayism, but actually transcends that. So what about the people who actually want a proper proper Vijay movie with songs and comedy and romance, which is non-existent here. What about those people? I really love the staging of Kutti Story. I love the way the song was staged. I love the track of Vijay using movies to it becomes a kind of comedy track because he uses movies to narrate his own life story, pretending that those things actually happened to him. I like the punchline about the crores of fans that he has because that kind of really ties into what he was talking earlier in the college scenes about politics. But I really like the fact that there is Lokesh Kanagaraj here. Whether you look at it in Managaram or Kaidi or this film, you find one auteur streak, which is that there is always a self-centered person or self-centered set of people, and slowly they discover a bit of selflessness. Now, even in Kaidi, if you look at it, all that Karthi wants to do is find his daughter. But slowly over the journey, even though midway he could have gone away, he says, okay, this mission is important for me. I need to do this. That's what happens to Vijay here too. He's a self-centered guy at the beginning. He's just drunk and I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't care really. But then slowly after the tragedy, he discovers the selfless streak in him. So that's something that you find in all the three Lokesh Kanagaraj films. And this means that this is a director who's not going to bend over easily for a big star. I just wish that the conceits in his mind had been fleshed out better in the narrative and in the screenplay. I wish there had been more excitement on screen. I'm not talking about the amped up highs that you get in an Attlee movie. You know, they have their own kind of strengths. This is not that kind of flavor at all. This is something classier that Lokesh is going for. And to be very fair, Lokesh is still finding his way, his voice, and what he's trying to do is not the typical thing at all. But I think he needs to spend more time writing because I think the writing is where his sensibilities need to fuse more with the sensibility of the stars that he's using. I really like thinking about Master, thinking about what they've done and all the different things. I just wished I had enjoyed the film a lot more. So that's it for Master. You'll find the full review up on the Film Companion website. If you like this video, do subscribe to Film Companion South and see you soon at the movies whenever the next movie releases. Be safe, wear a mask. It's not the easiest of things to kind of watch a movie with the mask on, but then you're protecting yourself, you're protecting other people, so stay safe and have a very happy Pongal.